What's up, everyone? Welcome to Around the ACL. Michelle Thompson here with Trey Ryder and Anthony Ione. Did you miss us? Sorry we were gone for 2 weeks. You would not believe the scheduling issues we were having back here. We didn't want to not have episodes. It just wasn't meant to be. We tried to reschedule the first one like 4 times, and then finally we just had to call it just a time of death on that one. But we have a lot to talk about because we never got to talk about signature number 4. So we're definitely going to spend some time doing that here today. And then next week we'll preview our next signature and lots of stuff to do there. But Trey, how you been?
Good, yeah. I mean, it's just this is like the largest break that we have right now in between signature events throughout this signature season. So it's a good pause and reflecting point. And now we're kind of into the home stretch of the regular season. So that's kind of what I'm looking forward to. In the meantime, I am taking my pool time very seriously, just laying out a little bit of, get a Saturday here and there where you can just sit around and do nothing a little bit. That's what I look forward to in the heat of the season, knowing it's constant back to back to back. So balancing the best of the both worlds there.
Yeah, I agree. Spent a lot of time by the pool lately as well. Anthony, how's it been on your side of things?
You guys are a lot more chillaxed than me. By the pool, that sounds amazing. Hey, a lot of basketball, so it doesn't change for me, right? So the high school season kicks up summer league in June. The AAU season across the nation stops in June. So everybody scrambles back to their high schools and puts on summer league. So that's kind of been the new thing in the Ione house. This past weekend was actually pretty cool. And I understand it's things that they do all around the nation, but D1 colleges will put on what they call camps, and they essentially invite out all of the local high schools. So for us, it was up at UNC, University of Northern Colorado. All the high schools pumped into the college, and it was like dorm life. All the kids checked into the dorms. There were over 2,000 basketball players, just high schools across all of Colorado. And they spent 3 days, 2 nights in the dorms, and you're guaranteed up to 6 games. It's a big tournament, multiple brackets, different levels, kind of like what we have in cornhole. They kind of do it in like platinum, gold, silver kind of a format. But so that was the whole weekend. So little man has celiac. So he just can't eat gluten, right? So you think that would be something easy to deal with, but you shove him in these dorms. All these kids hit the cafeterias, so he required a little bit more maintenance. He can't just scoot through there and find things to eat, especially when you're trying to perform at a level, at the diamond level, where you're playing the best schools. So spent a lot of work from the truck on the hot spot. That I was close enough to get him food when he needed it. But then it was cool to be able to just sign off and, by the weekend and just enjoy the weekend and a bunch of games. So really cool experience for all of the kids to kind of have that college feel, a little dorm life in high school.
Yeah, that would be really cool. And also get them kind of acclimated to college life. How fun. I can imagine. All right, we're going to get it started off with our pro doubles and singles. Our pro doubles winners, Mark Richards and Tony Smith, and then our pro singles winner, Jay Rubin. Certain person on the team picked him, and actually I picked both of them. And my hot take. Yeah, and my hot take, which I didn't get to say because we didn't have a show, but I had written it down. And by the way, I never write down hot takes. I always come up with it on the fly. I actually wrote this one down, so I was extra committed. And my hot take was that Cash Chamness would take King Seat at Bracket C. He did not take King Seat, but he did make it to the finals of Bracket C. So that's pretty darn close.
I feel like Meesh is on a bit of a roll lately with her hot takes.
She's running.
Well, she started making them hot, and then she's hitting them at a higher rate than when they were cold. So I don't know what's going on.
And I remember back at the beginning, right before the signature started, she said that Cheyenne Bubenheim and Jordan Power were going to win a signature, and you and I kind of said, "Okay, Meesh." They came. I mean, they did not win in Fort Worth, but obviously winning a bracket, making it all the way to the final. I mean, it was right towards the end there against Harbaugh and Ellis. I mean, it could have gone either way, and who knows what happens in the final. So,
and I picked them for this event. So I picked the 4 bracket winners, and I hit 3 of them, I believe. I want to say. Anyways, and Cheyenne and Jordan was one of them.
Killing it.
My team absolutely hates how much I talk about this. They just don't like that I'm right. And I am in points. And you know what? Suck it, because I did it. And you guys are going to have to do it.
Let's go.
All right. But Trey, I will pass it on to you to give us your thoughts on, we'll start with pro doubles.
Yeah, doubles, obviously, Mark Richards and Tony Smith. I thought, in a way, it's kind of same old, like the best team or the second best team, depending on if you're Team Graham and Trzynski or Team Richards and Smith wins another event. But it didn't feel same old. And it was just, when I saw the finals go down and I see them clinch the last bag of the weekend, you saw more emotion from Mark Richards than you had seen from any of his wins, including his singles world championship. Okay. There was something different about this win for Mark Richards. And if I had to peg on one, it had to have been the fact that Tony Smith is the one in the end that had to get them across the finish line and get that big win. To me, it felt like a buildup and a celebration of what Tony Smith was able to accomplish as a teammate of Mark Richards rather than whatever Mark Richards was able to do. Mark Richards extends his title lead. That gets another signature victory under his belt. Tony Smith, though, interesting enough, now moves into 5th all-time in ACL titles. This is now a person we need to be having the conversation about being included in that title race. Early on in the season, I talked about how Eric Davis was going to shrink that gap and become part of the conversation. I was not right about that. It was Tony Smith that continued to build his titles and is now among the top 5 all-time
Big problem,
ACL title
though, Trey. Like, how the heck does Tony Smith catch Mark Richards when they're partners? That's the only problem with that.
I don't think he needs to catch him, right? I think there just needs to be a point where if they continue to rise above and it's 1 and 2, and then Tony Smith starts stealing some from Richards, like that's when he makes his move, I guess, is the point. Now, what I would say is I think part of the reason that this was such a success, and I would be doing a disservice if I didn't talk about this, is that Tony Smith was not happy whatsoever with the way the board conditions were in his singles semifinals. And he attributed that entire loss to him losing in that Final Four to the board conditions. Obviously, there's a subtle board change, right? When boards come out because they're the finals boards and they're the sponsors of the tournament, right? And he is adamant, and he went off on a tirade about how, it was unfair, things weren't blah, blah, blah. I didn't see this tirade until after he had won doubles. So my snarky remark was, I'm assuming this was before the doubles victory that this little tirade went on about board conditions. But
hey, Meesh,
to me,
one question. Meesh, was that on your court?
No, he was complaining about the finals court 1. So when they were on, because that's a different board when it gets to, so whatever you guys had on your court 1 all day, all weekend, just for the semifinals and finals, they swap out those boards. And those are the ones he was complaining about.
Oh, okay. So just the swap out of the boards when the sponsored boards when we got to the finals.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay,
And what I find more interesting about that, I watched Austin Wasco play, and I didn't see much of a difference at all in his performance. I watched Jay Rubin. I watched a ton of people across this entire weekend. I thought, yes, are there times when the broadcast is different than the regular boards? Absolutely. I thought the difference here was absolutely minuscule. And I could tell that this was bothering Tony because he called them lightning boards. I'm bringing it down to earth really quick. Those boards are not lightning boards, okay? Not even close of what they were in those finals, right? It was a sticky area, but I'm setting this all up to, I promise I'm making Tony look bad. I'm going to make him, I'm going to get him into a good position here, right? I think the whole point of what I'm trying to make here is even through singles, there is something in Tony's head that does not let him handle adversity well. It just won't let him do it. He has this mental block, and he talks about the mental side of the game. However, I think it brings it back to why this was such a celebratory moment for Mark Richards. Mark Richards, in the last 3 rounds of that game, had individual shots that he could have won the signature title on one bag. And he went 0 for 3, missed 3 consecutive shots to do that. And some of them were not hard and very easily could have been attained by Mark Richards standards or even average pro standards. However, what that allowed it to happen was the bag to go in the hand of Tony Smith. And how reminiscent is this of the signature before, when it was not Sammy Soto that had to get it done, but it had to be in the hands of the player in Gavin Cano, who has developed somewhat of a reputation of not being able to finish when the lights are brightest. I think this is actually going to be a stepping stone moment for Tony Smith, because so many different times he's been the best player out there, but when all the lights go on here, being able to be the person that can say, Mark, I'm going to put you on my back and we're going to get across the finish line, I think that's a really big moment and a really big step. And so because of that, I think adding a layer of mental toughness for Richards and Smith moving forward is even scarier than could have been over the past few events.
Yeah, I have to agree with that too. All right, Anthony, how about you?
Yeah, just to add to the Tony Smith and Mark Richards thing, man, I felt that moment as well, and it really started in singles for Mark Richards. He came off of the bracket win and had just this celebration that was extra, and he yelled something to the crowd. It was like something to the effect of, you guys don't realize how hard this is and how hard it is to win. So, when he came over to the broadcast court and we went through the interview, I kind of was interested in that comment. And I think he's absolutely right. When you talk to all the pros around the league and you talk about Mark Richards, everybody knows that this guy, I don't know if anyone's outworking Mark Richards. His camp certainly gives him a lot of praise in how much he's working at being one of the best. And it just goes to show, the type of talent that we're dealing with in the league and how deep it is. But, going on to the doubles and just how dominant they are, let me just go through a few things, because that also led to the interview when we were in the doubles where it was kind of a weird question, but at the time it was accurate. And I'm like, I'm not kidding here, guys. Like, this is the doubles win. I turned to them and said, is this just easy for you guys? Because if you look at their path through the brackets, I mean, even if we go to bracket number 4, they gave up 10, 4, and 4. There was only one game where they gave up over 10. And it was like in the semifinals area of the bracket, they gave up 15. And if you go to the signature before that, and they're undefeated in both brackets, a 6, a 2, a 2, a 4, and a 5. You're talking about going through an entire pro doubles signature bracket, and you gave up 6 as the most points through the whole thing. So these boys just continue to be dominant. They've won 5 of their last 7 brackets in doubles titles events. And at the signatures, 3 of the 4 signatures, they've won their bracket. So it's so dominant how they just make it look so easy, at least at the doubles side. So yeah, clearly they're the most dominant team. But kind of moving down some of the other doubles, I definitely wanted to talk about the Jeremiah Ellis and Devin Harbaugh versus Graham and Trzynski match. Meesh, that one was on your court. I'd really love to get your perspective, because me and Jake are over on court 1. We actually had a Guy Nation match going on at the same time, and they're kind of just running bags while all this drama is going on over on court 2 on that matchup. And we had the game up on kind of another screen. So if you're listening to the commentary of the Guy Nation match, it was pretty bland, because they're just running bags, because we're trying to watch the end of this other match while still commentate. But it came down to a shot, Meesh, where Trzynski was in for the win, and there was some type of a wedge that happened. But will you walk us through that? Because it was one bag that was the difference in a bracket win, and it could have changed the entire outlook of the Final Four and possibly Mark Richards and Tony Smith taking down that bracket. What did you see?
Well, preceding that bag is Devin Harbaugh's miss. And when he missed, he was like, oh, like that's it. The game's over. There's no way that Trzynski's not going to put a bag in the hole. And he didn't. And that's when everybody went absolutely crazy, because Devin Harbaugh has had this issue with finishing, and then to have that happen, and then he thinks, oh my God, here I did it again. Devin Harbaugh was different. And I asked him about it. I said, you're all fired up. Like, normally you're kind of a quiet guy. Like, what's going on? And he said, number one, he hurt his foot. And so he was dealing with an injury. And so
saw him limping around. It was a foot then.
Yeah, jet ski incident. So he had it was his left foot that was injured. And then secondly, Jeremiah Ellis was having issues. Now, I think he was talking about the game prior to our court, so I don't know what was occurring, but he said he had to get fired up to get Jeremiah Ellis out of his kind of funk. And so he was thinking, if I can get all, Jeremiah Ellis-y, if you will, then like that'll get him all in the right zone. And it totally worked. And so they were just kind of feeding off of each other. And it was actually Devin Harbaugh getting Jeremiah Ellis kind of fired up in that game, and when Jeremiah Ellis would miss. So it was just this kind of role reversal. But I told Devin in the game before that one, I am loving the energy you're giving. Like, I know this is not your norm, but this is working for you. You need to keep this rolling. So that was kind of what made that game even more electric, was just getting that energy from him. And then of course there was that miss where he thinks, oh, I did all this and now I'm just going to give the game away. And then he gets to live for another round. Honestly, it was so crazy. I can't even remember what the final shot was or how it ended. I can't remember if it was Ellis or Harbaugh. The whole match was just absolutely insane. It should have been the final match in our court. We could have gone out in a bang, but it wasn't. We had a game after. We all had to kind of calm down and come back to earth. But absolutely insane match to watch for the whole weekend.
Yeah, I think because the next one was Tony Smith and Mark Richards, and they beat Forbes and Haddock by like 700. It was just it was over quick.
Yeah, it was insane. Like if Trzynski had that shot 49 out of 50 times, it was just so unfortunate how everything wedged up. I mean, you even look around the room because you get this kind of camera view of multiple faces and shock across the entire view of the camera that actually happened. Changed the entire outlook of the Final Four. So that was just super unfortunate. But kind of going through some of the others' doubles finishes, we had Spencer Fabianar and Ethan Farias taking down a bracket. I'm no longer, and I've actually been on this Fabianar train for a while and taken some hot takes on him. But Ethan Farias, man, and one thing I'm noticing about this guy is he's kind of that doubles partner out there that is a free agent. And people keep picking this kid up for opens and signatures. He's got something crazy, like 5 different doubles partners where he's in a bracket final. Ethan Farias. So here again, you have just Spencer Fabianar grabbing, Ethan Farias and taking down a bracket. But this kid is very, very special. Meesh, I know you were one of the first people to ask me about Emax at the time. I'm like, who's Emax? So you've been watching him make some moves in Cali, but this kid is special and could quickly become the best player out of Cali if he's not already in that discussion, between him and Fabianar. Tough doubles team taking down a bracket. Most would be shocked by that one, but I'm like, I don't know. Like if I looked at that and you said pick a dark horse to come out of a bracket, that would probably be who I go to. So congrats to those guys. You talked about Cheyenne Bubenheim and Jordan Power. You mentioned him a little bit earlier, Trey. I've always kind of been dogging him a little bit when it comes to top 10 rankings and who's going to finish. And it's been multiple times. And the biggest thing that I said last time is, okay, great. You're beating all the doubles teams that you're supposed to. They're beating ranks 20 through 100, but they hadn't beaten a legit top 10 team. And this was the signature where they came out and they did that. So it was Bubenheim really that was struggling early, but man, did she clutch up in the final the bracket final and really come through for Jordan Power in that one. And then even in the Final Four. So props to this team. They're definitely a team that you have to respect and say, hey, this is a team that is a top 10 team now that they've taken down one of the best teams in the division, a top 4 team. So they continue to crush. Graham and Trzynski, it's really weird how Trzynski was literally the best player in the building in doubles to start the season. And it's just something off. I love calling those type of matches because we know we're going to get every shot that you can find in the game of cornhole. We're going to get something strategic And there's just something a little off for Jacob Trzynski. It's almost like the slow conditions were working against him. He had this case of the lefts every time he showed up on our bracket. We know he throws this kind of dedicated, a little bit of tilt bag. So he's going to have more right to left when the conditions get slow. But he's always been able to control that either by, implementing some type of a lift or putting more roll on his bag to keep it more straight. But I think that was the downfall for him, at least on our court, as it got deeper into the brackets. The slower conditions just kept pushing him left, and it cost him big points when it mattered. I definitely wanted to mention Guy Nation here when we're talking about doubles, just because of how they're popping off. And, it's very consistent, and this whole mindset thing that they're into, they've really committed to this. They're even advertising it, the hats they wear, the way they talk to you. Every time you talk to these guys, it's not about look at my PPR and look how well how high my four bagger percentage is and look at the W's. It's always emphasized on this mindset. And so whatever they're doing right now, Meesh, and I know that falls more into your lane, but whatever they're doing right now is working. And who knows, we might get a Guy Nation take down a bracket, which would blow my mind at one of these signatures.
Well, I think it's possible. Like Matt Guy has, I don't know if you've seen on his hat, he has a bunch of things written on the brim of his hat, like all these sort of reminders, which I love. One of the things I'll tell players is to have these little like cheat sheets. You can have a big piece of paper in your pocket, like little reminders. But he wrote it right on his hat, which I think is pretty cool.
Three quick notes bouncing off, and then we can move on to singles. Is first on Guy Nation, just to piggyback off that. How many times do we see a team like this all year long that hangs around but never gets anything done and then shows up to the World Championships and makes it to the finals?
That'd be crazy.
I mean, look what Bernasset and Lopez did. What has Philip Lopez made a career off of? Just doing exactly that. We had a Trader in Hicks last year, right? They weren't a team that was really on our way. Even Kingsbury and Rawls was always close, but never got to the end. Then all of a sudden in Rock Hill, right? I mean, they make a deep run. So watch out for someone like that. Cheyenne Bubenheim and Jordan Power. I talked to Cheyenne a little bit this weekend, and I can tell she's grown up, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And I asked her about Jordan, and she said, I have never played with someone before that I love playing with. She adores Jordan
in a
partnership way. And
I
know that for sure. He loves it as well.
He said, I'll play with her for the rest of my life if she'll let me.
It is just wild to me how a team that we weren't sure wasn't going to mix has now become arguably one of the teams with the most chemistry that we could possibly have. And I think that is, I think that's just really, really, really cool. But I think they are gelling, and they are a dynamic force to be reckoned with. So
to emphasize what I was saying, guys, Power was carrying in doubles. Cheyenne was making all kinds of crazy mistakes that we never see her make. And the entire time, he just kept digging and clawing, and the voice going across the lane to Cheyenne was always positive, and it was always like, get this next one, get this next one. And I think that was critical to getting to that finals match where it flipped. And Cheyenne took over.
It's not fake. That's why it works. He genuinely trusts her. So even if she's throwing off, even if her PPR is low, his trust for her doesn't waver. It's like, you have to have unwavering confidence to win, right? You can't have anything like you talk about the Tony Smith issues. His confidence drops a teeny tiny bit if the board conditions aren't there. And as soon as that drops, you can't win because you have to have peak confidence. And what I find with those two is that even if her confidence was to waver, Jordan's doesn't. Imagine having a partner on the other side that there's nothing you can do to shake their confidence in you and have that kind of trust energetically coming. And that's exactly what she needs to thrive. And we're seeing it. I love watching it.
She cooked in the semifinal. Absolutely.
And then my last
note,
it
was Power that sold.
My last note on doubles. There is a new best team in the world at their best. And that is Jeremiah Ellis and Devin Harbaugh. They are the best team in the world if you get the best out of both of them. Based on what I saw in a very small window of this new, like you were talking about, energized Harbaugh and this just oozing confidence Jeremiah Ellis, I guarantee you put them up against Tony Smith and Mark Richards. Tony Smith and Mark Richards are not even at their best walking away with that victory, right? Because that mental confidence of Harbaugh and Ellis will just consume any opponent. The problem is I don't know if we'll ever see it. It's tough to get that lightning to hit and to strike in a bottle.
Oh my gosh.
That's probably true. All right, we got to get into singles. Trey, tell us about singles.
Singles, yeah. I mean, look, you have a guy that threw 71 in a row. You know, I do have to give a little shout out to Alex Lippard. Alex Lippard comes out in his first game at a pro signature event and throws 35 out of 36 bags in the hole and gives up 2 points. So I'm sorry, Alex. I mean, thanks for playing, I guess. I mean, geez, that's just brutal. So yeah, I mean, Jay Rubin, the comeback king, he ultimately gets that crown now. He's not like he is the comeback king. He's done it in every way that you can define the word comeback. He's come back within a match, right? He's been one that literally orchestrated the greatest comeback in the history of the sport, down 20-2 in the World Championships. He's now literally stepped away from the game. He's idolized Michael Jordan, the guy who stepped away, right? And now he has done that himself. He has stepped away and come back to the game and now reached essentially the mountaintop in singles at a higher peak than he ever reached as an individual player prior to stepping away from the game. So Jay, in my opinion, is ultimately the greatest comeback story, the greatest comeback player in the history of our sport. And I think that's really, really exciting to showcase. And now he has, you know, in my mind, he's locked up comeback player of the year. I don't care what happens the rest of the year. I will fill out my ballot now. And if there's anything that's going to change between now and the end of the season, maybe it's 2, 3, 4. No one has shown the consistency across the year. Sure, maybe one person has a great run at the last event of the year. But at the same time, you know, Jay has earned this from my perspective. Austin Wasco, you know, he's really trending into a rookie of the year. And what I would say is what I saw from Wasco, you know, this event is if there's anybody not named Jay Rubin playing, we're talking about Austin Wasco winning the singles championship in Fort Worth. He was that good. I mean, he threw an 11-5 over a billion rounds in the finals against Jay Rubin. And I was looking at the scoring percentage. These guys playing nearly 40 rounds of bags and 100% scoring percentage from both players until the last bag that didn't matter at the very end of the game by Wasco. I mean, what else can you ask for in a singles final? Just a legendary performance. Really impressed by him. Jamie Graham continues to impress for me. He's getting close to locking up MVP. I'm saying he's getting that close. It's going to take a Mark Richards winning back-to-back, maybe even Tony Swift winning a back-to-back. But Jamie Graham has been so good and so consistent. And we're talking about a missed bag that bunched up that maybe should have fell by his partner for him not winning and making a Final Four again. He's right there at the end every step of the way. And so I continue to have a lot of eyes on him as someone that's really scary. And hey, look, Tony Smith is probably the most talented player in that entire building, but it's yet again another instance where Tony Smith gets to a Final Four and can't get across the finish line, and it's anybody's fault but his own. And although I like that for staying confident, at some point you gotta figure it out to get that true signature victory and get one under your belt. So I'm still a little bit concerned about Tony Smith in that regard, but overall, the Titans of the game just keep on stroking.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that as well. And in Tony Smith's mental game is what's going to get to the best of him there, but definitely the most talented. All right, Anthony, what you got for us?
Yeah, a little more on Jay Rubin for sure. I mean, obviously what we witnessed in that singles final has to be the best offensive performance we've ever seen. And it's because we saw two players bring their ceiling performance, and both players outperformed the best we've ever seen in a finals for sure. It's just absolutely unbelievable. Jay Rubin moves up 5 spots. He goes from 7 to 2. I mean, it is so hard to move up 1 spot. This guy jumps all the way to 2. And I think it just goes to show how tight that 1 through 5 or 1 through 8 really is, that you're able to jump that many spots in one event. And it's going to be a dogfight to the end. And Jamie Graham is reachable. I mean, if Ryan Trader was performing like if we got the 2024 Ryan Trader this season, we might be talking about Jay Rubin as MVP, because we know the MVP vote is going to take into consideration doubles performance. We're just not getting that right now at a Ryan Trader. But I kind of feel like this Jay Rubin train is rolling. I've never seen him more focused. And I've watched a lot of Jay Rubin matches, both as a player and as a fan and an analyst. That is the most focused I've ever seen Jay Rubin. The whole storyline behind his grandma, the anniversary of his grandma, was actually a really cool element. It played into the whole storyline, but it kind of was eerie, like how well he was performing. Like it almost felt like it played into it a little bit. And then, we kind of joke about the Uncle Bob effect. That's getting a little bit eerie as well. I mean, it was weird when we were pros going back, where Jay Rubin would say, hey, every time Uncle Bob is sitting here watching one of my games, I win. He's the one that noticed it first. So then it became a joke. Tell Uncle Bob, come over to court 77. So, dude, he would always win when Uncle Bob showed up. So what's crazy is he's on this singles run. He's got a record of like 12-1 this season when Uncle Bob is sitting courtside. And of course, the time that Uncle Bob makes his final match, he wins it. The one that he lost last time, Uncle Bob didn't make it because he had a flight to take out. So that was just getting a little weird there. It's just kind of a fun storyline in the background. But look at some of these stats, guys, because I think we might be witnessing possibly the best offense we've ever seen in the league, period. And there's always been that one guy that holds that title. It's Matt Guy. And now all of a sudden we got Jay Rubin in this offensive discussion that we thought nobody would hit. 3,200 plus rounds this season. Over 3,000 rounds. The guy's throwing a 10.51 PPR and a 0.7 DPR. So in the past, our rule of thumb was a 10-5 wins you tournaments. The envelope continues to grow. It's insane. I mean, it reminded me of 2019. I remember being in a tournament with Jordan Kamba. He was the only one with a 10 in the entire tournament. And everybody was like, Jordan Kamba's going to win this match. He's going to win this tournament. Now you look into brackets, and there's 10 guys in one bracket with a 10 plus. So it's like, at what point does this offensive stuff settle down? I mean, now you're talking about you need an 11 or a high 10 and a 0.7 DPR to win. It's insane. The guy is throwing 54% four-baggers. And here's where it kind of gets crazy. If we compare 2023 Jay Rubin, we got to go to 23, right? Because he retired he was out of the mix last year as a retirement. So if we go to 2023, he threw a 9.94 in 2023 and has improved that to a 10.51. That jump in PPR is absolutely insane. Guys, the difference between like a 30 seed and a top 15 is only like a 10th or 2/10 of a PPR. This guy has jumped 0.6 of a PPR, 0.6. That's insane. His four-bagger percentage in 2023 was 41%. He's improved that to 54%. I would love to go back and see Matt Guy's stats. I think it was 23 as well, where he threw something stupid. It was like a 10-4 on the season. I think Jay Rubin is bettering that right now. So we might be witnessing the best offensive performance ever. And that's why I was kind of talking about the MVP thing. If we got the Ryan Trader of last season, we might be talking about Jay Rubin as an MVP. The match against Wascal, just for real quick on this for the people out there, because this is how crazy it was. 39 rounds. One round, Jay Rubin didn't have a 10 or a 12. One round. 32 four-baggers. 32 four-baggers. He threw 82% four-baggers in a final. Absolutely crazy. Wascal went 16 rounds of 10s or 12s and scored 2 points. It's kind of like what you were talking about, Trey, where you're just keeping up. And this one's actually the craziest to me, just because I know Rubin's style of play. An entire match, and we're not talking about, it was a 9-round match or a 13-round match. 39 rounds, not one airmail from Rubin. Not one airmail. Blows my mind. But we ended up with a finals of an 11.36 versus an 11.59. What Austin Wascal did on that court, this kid is now moved up to literally what I saw was one of the best players to me in the division. Going into the match, me and Jake were riffing. We're going back and forth. How does Austin Waskow beat Jay Rubin? Both of us. No way in heck this guy should be going to a running a bag strategy. You do not run bags with Jay Rubin. That is what he did. And he did it at an 11.36 rate over 39 rounds. And what's crazy is Austin Waskow demonstrated, not in that match because he was running bags, but we got to call a couple of matches. He demonstrated one of the best dirty games that I've seen, the ability to consistently lay a level 1 block and the ability to use the lift and the roll with a slick side push as good as anybody else in the league. Guys, Austin Waskow, if he finished top 2 or 3 in the division at the end of this season, I would not be surprised. Look out for this guy to possibly be a number 1 guy.
Jay Rubin wanted to be in that MVP race. He literally came up to me and he goes, "Hey, let me give you my little pitch to be in that MVP ballot." I was like, "All right, no, I don't want to hear it. I'll let the numbers do the talking." So I cut him off, but he was getting ready to give me some bullet points of why he deserves that MVP. So he's fighting for that too, and be interesting to see if him and Trainer make a run at any other point in doubles this year.
I mean, they've got some time. There's a few events left. I wouldn't say it's out of question, but obviously Trader's got to find his game. He's still throwing well, but he's not throwing at the rate that we know he can. Women's seniors and juniors. Women's singles went to Peyton Haynes. Doubles, Cameron Belvin and Kaylee Hunter. Senior singles, Damon Dennis. He also took doubles with Frank Modlin. Junior singles, Tony Forbes, which I believe he also won signature number 3's junior singles. Junior doubles, Ethan Farias and Gabriel Clausen. The juniors, I was telling Wally or somebody, I said, when it comes to juniors, I feel like that bracket, the juniors bracket, is so difficult that it really prepares them and kind of gives them an advantage going into pro singles and doubles, right? Yeah. Like, it is so hard to get through.
And you know what? Tony Forbes in this bracket, he has won 3 out of those 4 signature events. And so he is cooking right now as far as points goes. He's kind of in the Damon Dennis category. I don't think we're going to see any change on that number 1 spot between now and the end of the season. Damon Dennis sitting atop seniors and Tony Forbes sitting up atop juniors. And it's really the women's game that is completely up for grabs, which is almost completely the opposite of what we have had for the past, 5 years? It's just been like, okay, Cheyenne's going to be number 1, but who's going to be the best junior? Who's going to be the best senior type of thing? And completely different dynamic than what we have now.
Yeah, shocking. All right, anything on women, seniors, juniors before we move on, Anthony?
Just recognizing Peyton Haynes and that style of play. If we look outside of a Miranda Coy, maybe even a Riley Schaff, I mean, Peyton Haynes may be the only other player that could bring that game that we see so successful, the ability to create shots and push through traffic and roll back. So good to see her get a win. I know she's been grinding at this one for some time, and interesting that we finally get that style of play winning in women's. We just see so many bag runners in women's and seniors. The only comment I've had on senior doubles, it was nice to see the OG Frank Modlin really turn it on in the back half of that final. We know he's been in a bit of a slump all season, where Damon's really been carrying that doubles team, but Frank Modlin came through clutch in the back half of that game to help lock down that championship.
Well, let's move into our rankings. We talked about a little bit earlier. Jamie Graham sitting at number 1, Jay Rubin number 2, Tony Smith 3, Austin Wasco 4, Mark Richards 5, Sammy Soto 6, Gavin Cano 7, Matt Guy 8, Trey Birchfield 9, Zach Aiken 10. I don't have all of our rankings that we set at the beginning of the season in front of us, obviously, but this seems like not surprising at all to me. I mean, there's probably players that I'm not thinking of, Jeremiah Ellis, Devin Harbaugh, I'm sure those were in ours. But yeah, just looking at it, besides Zach Aiken, there's nobody that I'm like, wow, what are they doing?
I don't think we would have put Guy in our top 10 if we went back.
Maybe not.
He would have been top 20, but I think seeing Guy top 10 is a bit of a surprise. And Waskow was off most of our radar.
Hand up, Jay Rubin wouldn't have been anywhere close.
Okay.
I mean, Jay Rubin probably would have been 25th for me at the beginning of the year.
Oh, wow.
I just did not foresee it, right? You're talking about the guy that has to step away from the game, who is bag running and airmail only, no cut or roll, and is going to come into the youth of the sport and be able to surge all the way to a top 10 finish, given how hard the game has been. I just said absolutely bleeping not even close, right? I think that's what makes it more impressive for me, is that Ruben has been able to do that, right? And he's done it literally in the exact way that we said nobody could win. And that's literally running bags better than anybody else in the world. I mean, part of the kudos that I got to give Jay, and I didn't even get to talk about, it has been 6 years since somebody else has led the entire pro division in PPR besides Matt Guy.
Wow.
6 years.
Oh, that's a great stat. Wow.
Okay, so Jay Rubin is now granted, he's got 0.04 of a lead on PPR right now, but that goes to show you like how different that this is for Jay. And so that's why I think it makes it that much more impressive. Yeah, other than that, yeah, I mean, if you had told me it's Jamie Graham, Tony Smith, Mark Richards, Sammy Soto, Gavin Cano, Trey Birchfield, we probably all would have said, I can foresee that coming, right? Maybe some surprises as who's not there rather than who is there. But Wasco was a surprise for me. I knew he'd be a top 25 player, kind of like Ruben. It was just a question of how high he can finish. But he's still got to finish the year. We saw this from Trader. Trader was second all year last year and then had a bad ending to the year and tried to kind of dropped way back. So be interesting to see how these guys end up finishing these seasons.
Trzynski does seem like he belongs in the top 10. I have picked him a couple times as a bracket winner. And so I don't know what's going on because I look at his stats and they're phenomenal. So I'm not sure what's happening there.
Agree. I did actually pull up. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Trey.
No, you go.
I was going to say, while you were talking, I did pull up doubles top 10s. This goes back to like October, November timeframe. So this would have been early in the season. Just kind of looking at top 10s on there. So I had Chris Kingsbury and Alan Rawls being the number one team. That was kind of like my, you know how you just pick one and you're like, you want to create some conversation and get people talking a little bit, some debate. They were second in the world. Remember, they made it to the championship in doubles at Worlds. I picked them number one. They're quietly sitting 10. I mean, I think I've only called one of their matches all season. So that tells me they're consistently finishing top 4, but haven't really had that big breakthrough yet. I had Gavin Cano and Sammy Soto at 2. They're 3, so not a surprise there. I had Jamie Graham and Trzynski at 3. They're 2, so they just kind of swap positions. This one's a little bit weird for us. Derek Collin and Alex Rawls, I had at 4. They're 16, guys.
What the hell is going on there?
It's weird. I love we saw so much success last year when you had one player that was able to play a speed controlled game and one player who ran bags. And for some reason that worked really well. If all the board conditions are fast, one guy can cook, the other guy just kind of washes, and vice versa in sticky conditions. So that seemed to work really well, but not yet. I mean, there's still time for them to break down. I had Richard Smith at 5. Obviously they're number 1. Trey Birchfield and Adam Hissner I had at 6. They're 22. That's a little bit crazy too.
Adam's struggling.
But, if we look to last season, they finished like 17th and then ended up world champions. So, I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, I think that was my fun fact. That was my fun fact in that the world champions from last year would not have auto qualified for the world championship bracket under this year's formats. Because remember, that's something that we have to start talking about here is that not everybody qualifies for the world championship this year, right? You have to qualify for it. There's auto bids. And as we get out of signature number 5, those are the stakes we have to start talking about, right? Are you going to get in or with an auto bid, or are you going to have to jump into a challenger bracket and play your way in, right? So, I mean, will we have a world champion that doesn't auto qualify this year? That's going to be the fun thing to ask.
Let me jump into that real quick because I happen to have that up. That would be a great conversation. So it's top 20 in doubles, right?
Okay, so they would be. Okay, never mind. They would be, yeah.
And then top 32 in singles, right?
Yeah.
All right, I'm just looking at this real quick. Who's on the bubble? Jeremiah Ellis, 31. Jordan Power, 32.
Jacob Trzynski, 33.
Jacob Trzynski. Okay, all those guys are going to get in on doubles. No worries there. But check some of these other ones out. How about Noah Almanza at 36 in singles and 31 in doubles? He does not qualify to be a pro next year.
They're separate, right? They are separate. So you could auto qualify for singles and have to play a doubles challenger bracket, right?
Right.
Part. Now, if you're talking about a pro card, yes, obviously, if you're in on one auto qualified, you're not worried about qualifying to get your pro card. But to your point, yes. But like the idea that Jacob Trzynski, him and Jamie Graham are the number one team in the world, and Trzynski has to show up 2 days earlier to play in a challenger bracket to get into the World Championships. That's crazy. Blowing my mind right now.
Yeah, true. Adam Hissner is out of both. 22 in doubles, 37 in singles. He's in both challenger brackets at this point. Tanner Halbert, a legend. I mean, it's going to be insane what happens coming into the World Championship. Tanner Halbert is 44 in singles and 34 in doubles. So he's in both challenger brackets as well. Damon Dennis, another OG, 54 in singles and 50 in doubles. So, guys, he would also be in both challenger brackets. Yeah, that whole storyline is actually crazy. That race to squeeze into the top 100 is going to be nutty.
Yeah, let's go ahead and just go through doubles. Richard Smith at 1, Graham Trzynski also at 1. They're tied. They both have 4,068 points. Third place, Soto Kano, 3,980 points. So a little bit of a gap.
They're not catching them. There's too big of a gap.
Too big of a gap. That's probably locked in there. Burton Jr. and Chamberlain at 4. Power, Bubenheim at 5. Harbaugh and Ellis at 6. Guy at 7. Wilson Sims at 8. Lopez Jr. and Bernasette at 9. And then all tied for 10 is Reeves and Wasco, Rubin and Trader, and Rawls and Kingsbury. So not too much that's kind of jumping off the page at me, other than I don't think I had Wilson and Sims. I don't remember where I would have put them. I definitely didn't have them in top 10. So I'd say they're outperforming what I perceived. And then Reeves, Wasco, I got to give credit. I apparently don't have a lot of faith in Reeves and Wasco. I never picked them. I don't put them in the top 10. Sorry guys.
They were my top 10 in October, November. They were my top 10.
They were. Okay, there you go.
Yeah. Reeves and Wasco and Rubin and Trader are the same team. You got one guy that is having a career season and one guy that you're like,
yeah,
chop.
Gotta get it going.
I mean,
gotta get it going for sure.
I know. Let's stay in that top 10. I mean, if either one of those guys are playing to their potential, like Anthony alluded to, we're talking about them being a MVP candidate.
Absolutely. All right, we got time for hot takes. Trey, what do you got for us?
I somewhat alluded to it. Each year at the World Championships, we get something other than chalk. It just is what it is. I mean, doubles has been chalk all year. It's usually chalk through the regular season, the super teams. But when it comes to the World Championships, you get teams that just come out of nowhere and they make those deep runs. I'm going to say that Matt and Brett Guy make the Final Four of the World Championships by the time we get to August. They're going to put it all together, and it's not going to be these next two events, but when they get there to Rock Hill, they're going to put it all together. They're going to make a run, and we're going to see them in the Final Four.
All right, Anthony.
All right. This is arguably not hot, but it's just I have to go here, and it is so difficult to win back-to-backs, but Jay Rubin wins singles again at the next signature.
Dude,
dude is cooking.
I'll give you that one.
I could totally see it. All right, I just talked about how I gave them no love. Well, I'm going to give Austin Wasco some love. I definitely think that he's got what it takes to get to the end. I'm going to put him in the finals for the World Championships for singles. There you go, Austin. There's the respect on your name that you deserve. All right, guys, that's all we got time for. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you all next time.